Hello everyone, this is Bridget Danner with Hormone Detox Shop, and I'm here today with anxiety expert Trudy Scott. Hi Trudy.
Hi Bridget, I'm keen to be here and answer questions.
Well, I'm glad. I appreciate you getting up early. Do you want to share with everyone where you live and what you're up to today?
I live just outside Sydney and it's a brisk day here early in the morning. We've had some cold weather come through and tons of snow on the mountains.
Oh, wow.
And my sister's arriving at the end of the week and we're going skiing. So
Oh, wow. That's
a little bit different from you. You're looking very hot and summery.
I know. I'm like in a tank top a lot on these videos. So yeah, I'm in Phoenix. It's like 102 today, which actually isn't that bad for Phoenix, but well, thank you for coming on. We are having you on, because you're a beloved expert friend of ours in our world. And also you're a speaker today on day 7 of our DIY Detox Summit. So if you're not registered for that, I will share the link in the notes here. If you are registered, I hope you can tune in today. Today was a bit of a melting pot day. Where do I put this or that talk? But I think
thanks.
I know, I'm being honest, because we didn't have like a full 5 talks on mood or mental health. But I think today is like one of the most interesting days because we've got anxiety, which is a really pressing and a really troubling problem if you have it. So you're covering that and some very interesting angles on that many people haven't heard of. And then we have Razzie Berry talking about intuition. That one was even harder. Where do I put this one? It's a great talk. Again, most people haven't really even heard about how to detox their intuition. It's like a brand new topic, so that was super cool. We have Suzanne Bennett talking about energy and mitochondria and working on that through fermented foods. We've got Eva Detko talking about how she herself and with her clients recovered from autoimmunity through working on emotions and somewhat of anxiety as well. And then we've got Jonathan Otto kind of talking about, I kind of called it like family detox, because he talks about, he's not a traditional trained healthcare provider, but he was a researcher and filmmaker and learning all these things about natural medicine, and he helped his wife with depression and different things in the family. So I don't know, I guess you could say today is like a little bit more about the spirit and how toxins relate and disrupt that part of our lives. So Trudy, do you want to maybe give a synopsis? We recorded a long time ago, but do you remember what we talked about in your interview?
I do, because one of the areas that I talked about is you might not think about when you think about detox or DIY detox, because typically when you think about detox, you think of going on a detox and cleaning out your diet, maybe cleaning out your pantry and giving your digestion a chance to recover. That's what we might want to think about when we're thinking about DIY detox. But what I talked about certainly at the beginning was benzodiazepines, and this is the most commonly prescribed medication for anxiety, and it can end up becoming problematic. It can actually cause insomnia. It can actually increase anxiety in some people. And I just wanted to share this because I consider it as a toxin, because it is causing problems. It also, we have this issue where folks build up tolerance, so they need more and more and more, and then things get worse and worse and worse. We have dependence, so people want to stop and they can't stop, because as soon as they stop they get these terrible side effects. And then when they do want to taper, the taper has to be done really, really, really slowly. And unfortunately, a lot of people, even integrative and functional medicine practitioners, are not even aware of how problematic the benzodiazepines can be. I'm in a practitioner group, and one woman posted and said, I'm working with this client. She was a nutritionist. I'm working with this client who's got anxiety. She's was prescribed a benzodiazepine. She can't get in to see her doctor for another month. She's run out of benzodiazepines, and her doctor won't give her a script over the phone to to tide her over for the next month. What do I do? And there was a lot of practitioners who responded and didn't realize that this was a life-threatening situation, and this is actually malpractice, because to have someone just go cold turkey off benzodiazepines is extremely dangerous, really, really dangerous. And there was, questions about, should we, she'll be fine, or just give her some, some nutrients to help tide her over. There were a number of people who were aware about how grave it was and said, she needs to, this is malpractice. She needs to, make sure that this is, she can get hold of a benzodiazepine prescription and, and figure it out, because it is very, very serious. So it's not just the mainstream medicine who aren't aware of these problems with benzodiazepines. It's just not common knowledge. And unfortunately, a lot of people get prescribed them and then they only find out the hard way. So it was a pretty serious start to our interview, but I just want people to be aware of it. And it's why I do the work that I do, because if you have anxiety and you start to look at the biochemistry and you use amino acids like GABA or tryptophan, or you get off gluten or you get off caffeine, you can eliminate the anxiety. You don't need medications. And a lot of people will say to me, my anxiety is so severe, I definitely need medications. My anxiety is the kind where I need medication. And I just want to dispel that myth, because your anxiety, no matter how severe it is, can be eliminated with nutrients and a biochemical approach. It's just a matter of finding the root cause. So I brought up benzos in this DIY detox because I consider it a toxin, and I consider getting off the benzo as something that is going to be beneficial. Not really a DIY thing, because you definitely need support while you are going off the benzo, but it's just I consider it a toxin. Using the nutrients and the dietary changes, that's definitely DIY. You can certainly start to make all of those changes. And then for someone who is wanting to get off the benzodiazepine, get yourself nutritionally sound before considering tapering off. A lot of people say, I've just heard about benzos, I really want to get off them, I need to stop right away. We've really got to go and address the underlying reason as to why the anxiety started in the first place. Is it because you're gluten sensitive? Is it because you've got a leaky gut and you've got low zinc and you've got low vitamin B6 and you have issues with iron levels? You've got to go and address those root causes first. So then it makes it easier to do the taper from the benzodiazepine.
Oh, that was so well said. So yeah, we'll record this video and put it on YouTube too, because that was really awesome. Yeah, this was actually the one question we got on the page was about this very issue. So I'll share it, because some of it you already answered, but this woman has it. So she says anxiety for 30 plus years and on benzos for 30 years. They stopped working last few years and she increased the dose. So then she started using alcohol, and now she has to take both of them to be able to leave the house. And she would like to go to alternative remedies, and she's asking, can she gradually wean off the meds and alcohol? Is there hope, is what she asked.
So yes, there is hope. Let me just address a few things that I heard there. Firstly, she's been on them for a really long time. Did you say 30 years? So this is common. And I just want to point out that benzodiazepines, if you look in the physician's desk reference, which is guidelines for doctors prescribing this medication, the max is 2 weeks. This is a short-term medication that is meant to be prescribed in an acute situation, like in hospital. If someone's in a very dire situation after an accident or something like that, short-term. And people are on them for years, 20, 30, 40 years. So that for a start, that's a problem. So if you ever prescribed a benzo, know this, that's what
2 weeks.
2
Okay.
weeks. And even in 2 weeks, some people can get dependency issues and have issues tapering. So, you know, I've had people go in for a dental procedure and be prescribed a benzodiazepine. Suddenly they have, you know, anxiety through the roof, whereas the benzodiazepine was there, that, you know, as a stopgap for their pain, and the anxiety goes through the roof and they suddenly develop insomnia. So even 2 weeks can be problematic. So I would just, actually it's a class of medications like fluoroquinolones, which is a class of antibiotics that I would just steer clear of. It's really just too many problems. But going back to this woman's question, so yes, there is hope. The problem is the longer you are on the benzodiazepines, the harder it can be. And I just want to also say that for some people, it's very difficult. There's about a third of people have a really, really hard time. Another third will have a pretty hard time tapering. And then for the other third, it's easy. It sounds like she's probably fitting in the difficult third category because she's had to add the alcohol. But I do want to just add a caution here. There's a lot of literature on this combination of benzodiazepines and alcohol together, and it's very, very severe. So to me, she needs professional help. This is not a DIY situation. She needs to work with a health professional who is familiar with the issues that benzodiazepines cause. And also this combination of alcohol and the benzodiazepine is very severe. This is when you hear about celebrities like Whitney Houston, who have passed out and died in the bath, I think it was. We don't know, but we, you know, assume that it was a combination of possibly a benzodiazepine and alcohol. It just, you know, it shuts the body down. So this is a very serious situation. But what I would say is, focus on things that you can do, focus on some simple changes. And my philosophy is, I'll just give you very briefly what my philosophy is as far as starting to heal the body and trying to get to some of the root causes. That's eating real whole foods. So get rid of the junk food, eat real foods. You know, this is foods that are not in a box, don't have these weird ingredients that we don't know what they are. Simple things like, you know, additives, like a color, like a preservative could trigger anxiety. So get rid of all the processed foods, eat real foods, nutrient dense foods. So we want to eat healthy fats like butter and coconut oil, even saturated fats and quality grass-fed red meat. We need that red meat in order to get iron, which is needed to make our neurotransmitters. We need vitamin B6. We need zinc. Zinc is so crucial, and it's very oftenly low. So just focusing, you know, on diet can make a start. Organic, preferably. There's a lot of research on the link between pesticides and increased anxiety. So just, you know, do that. You know, quality organic fruits and vegetables, pastured eggs, wild fish. You're getting those omega-3s. You're getting that protein. You need that protein as a substrate to make our neurotransmitters. So that would be the first thing. Then there's some things that we want to take out: sugar, caffeine, gluten. Those can all deplete our nutrients. They can trigger anxiety. And the amino acids make it easy to do that. So I would say consider using GABA to help. It may be problematic. People who've been on benzodiazepines a long time may have problems with GABA itself because their receptors are just so numb, they just don't know what to do anymore. They just, you know, they can't accept the GABA. But then there are some other nutrients that help when you are tapering benzodiazepines. Melatonin can be very helpful. And niacinamide can be very helpful. But again, you know, in this situation, I would definitely work with a practitioner. And then once you have started to make those dietary changes, then you've got to look at the gut. So if she's going to be working with a practitioner, addressing gut health, looking at dysbiosis is really important. We make so many of our neurotransmitters in the gut. And if we can get that sorted out, looking at digestion. So if she's eating all this beautiful food, she's actually, to describe it as, think about in the old days when you went into a disco or a ladies bar and smoking was allowed and you would just see all the swirling smoke all around you. That is what Wi-Fi is like. Imagine the swirling smoke, and it's just all these EMFs around you. So get rid of the Wi-Fi. And a lot of people say, how on earth do I do that? This is a DIY detox tip that you can actually do. Get rid of the Wi-Fi, and you will see a huge difference, especially if you are very sensitive. So just go wired. Just go into the PC store, get Ethernet cables. I don't have any Wi-Fi in the house at all. I don't use I don't use my cell phone except for maybe 5 minutes a day. And you can actually get a wired connection for your cell phone if you need that. If that's the only phone that you have, you can actually get a wired connection. So just be aware of Wi-Fi and how that can affect you. So anything else that I missed there on some of the questions that she asked, Bridget?
No, I think that was great. I want to recap, and I also want to share to you and our audience. We got cut off. I don't know if it was something I was clicking on or whatever, so I had to restart the Facebook Live. So this is still live, but there might be like a tiny bit we missed in the middle. So I want to recap a few things. One is, if you're coming off medications, work with a practitioner, probably the one who diagnosed you, or one who's qualified to diagnose and prescribe. You know, that's probably not a health coach's job, I would imagine. Although you can work with a health coach. In addition, you said to shore up your nutrition before you try to come off. That's a great tip. You talked about gluten, sugar, and caffeine. And now you just talked about Wi-Fi being like the new smoking and can really affect people. You know, you and I were just in a class in neuroinflammation, and I believe he said that if you have a leaky brain, then the Wi-Fi can be especially irritating for you. Have you found that in your own practice, Trudy?
Well, that neuroinflammation training that we just did with Dr. Karazian was mind-blowing. This was another root cause that I think we don't take seriously enough, and that is head traumas. So if someone has had a bump on the head, and it does not have to be a concussion, that can trigger some of these problems. So I think that, yes, will make you more susceptible to Wi-Fi. I don't know that that's the only situation. I found that like 2 years ago, I just became more and more susceptible to Wi-Fi. And, you know, it might have just been the last straw that, you know, was just the last thing that caused my, you know, started to really exacerbate my health concerns. I actually have found out that I've got Lyme disease as well. So it might have been the combination of the EMFs really making the Lyme disease sort of revive and start to cause problems. So it really depends where you are. But certainly if someone is on a benzodiazepine, I just consider them very, very sensitive to anything, and the Wi-Fi is going to be problematic. But Bridget, I just wanted to go back to something you just said there, is work with the doctor to help and work with the prescribing physician. Unfortunately, that is the right advice to give, but unfortunately,
technically, yeah,
yes, it is, because, and I never do, and I would never tell any of my clients to change any of their medications. This is me talking to them, and they go back to their doctor and get the okay from their doctor. The problem there, and I'm being, you know, totally honest here, is that a lot of the times they will come back and say, my doctor doesn't know. They just, you know, they don't know this. So
right.
Be aware that you are going to have to educate yourself, and then in turn educate the doctor. But you need the doctor to be on board so they can monitor if you end up having seizures or you need to be hospitalized. This is so important. But I want to give 2 other resources here for people who are coming off benzos, because it often becomes a DIY sort of self-help situation where you need a community to help you. And there are 2 groups. One is called Benzo Buddies, and you can just go to benzobuddies.org. It's a community of people who are in the same situation. They have discovered they're in a really bad situation. They are wanting to get off the benzodiazepines, and they are now supporting other people doing it. I'm seeing you looking down. I'm just making sure we're still alive. Are we?
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Sorry. I'm just typing in the Benzo Buddies.
Okay, good. Okay. So benzobuddies.org. Now I want to just share a few things about them. One thing is it's a wonderful supportive community. So you've got other people who've been through what you're going through, So from that point of view, it's fantastic. And when I've done my anxiety summits, the founder of the Benzo Buddies group and a lot of members from Benzo Buddies, get on the summits and comment and thank me for the for what I'm doing, and I share their information. We do have a little difference. They and how we're thinking. They just say, you need to do this really, really, really slow taper, and they use the Ashton protocol. Heather Ashton is from the UK. She has a protocol on how to taper the benzos, and there's a different protocol for each different benzodiazepine, and it's really, really, really slow. If you think, you're thinking like a year slow, not
Wow.
2 weeks slow or 3 months slow. It can be a year, it can be 2 years slow. So they will guide people through that. Where we differ is that they say no nutrients. Don't use GABA, don't use melatonin, don't use niacin. They don't talk about what I share in terms of getting yourself nutritionally sound before you do the taper. So they're just not versed in that, which is fine. They have their strengths in other areas. So I just want to put that out there. And then I did just have someone comment on my blog saying she was able to taper her benzodiazepine, doing what I said with the nutritional support, and she thanked me. She said personally for her, the Benzo Buddies group did not work because it made her more afraid. So because you hear all these horror stories. So you've got to realize where you are in this journey and know what you're going to do. So I just wanted to share that. And I don't, it's not disparaging at all, because I think they're doing a wonderful job. And I do recommend people go there if they feel like they can handle it. And the group is amazing, and they're very gentle, and they're very kind, and they're very helpful. But as you said, if you've been on them for 30 years, as this woman has, and you're feeling like you're in a lot of trouble, it's scary. And seeing the posts from other people in trouble may be a trigger. So just be aware of that. And then the other resource that I wanted to share is a wonderful nonprofit out of Oregon called Benzodiazepine Information Coalition, BRC.
BRC.org or?
Yeah, or I think the website is Benzodiazepine Information Coalition. If you just Google that, you'll find it.
That was a nice long title.
They've got a Facebook page, and they are amazing. I think she's the president. The woman who's president is an MD who was in the same situation, was prescribed a benzodiazepine and got into trouble, and has now created this organization. Have you found it?
Yeah, so the URL is actually just benzoinfo.com.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, it looks great. Yeah.
Really great.
Trudy, I had no idea it was this dangerous. I think we talked more about the fluoroquinolones on our interview, but this is really eye-opening for me, and I'm really glad that we're talking about it, so thank you.
You're right. We talked a lot about the fluoroquinolones, and I might have mentioned, yes, you're right. We talked about, how bad they are, which is this class of antibiotics, which can, as well as causing tendon issues, can cause neuropsychiatric issues. Good memory.
Yeah.
We mentioned benzos because the fluoroquinolones can actually make benzodiazepine withdrawal symptoms worse, and the combination can actually cause some problems. So when I'm working with someone, we go back and we look at other things that could have made this benzodiazepine symptoms worse. So the fluoroquinolones is one of them. Other things that can make it harder to taper off a benzodiazepine is if you are on a birth control pill or have been on a birth control pill in the past. Antifungal medications. We mentioned alcohol, that can make things worse. And then there are some liver polymorphisms in the CYP450 enzyme family. If you have that liver polymorphism, it can make it harder for you to detox medications, and benzodiazepines are one of them. So there are these people who have all of these, tick all of these boxes: benzo, alcohol, birth control pill, antifungal medications, the liver enzyme genetic defect, and then also SSRIs. If they've been prescribed SSRI, if they've got all of those or some of those, it can make it more challenging to taper, and the tolerance factor can be worse.
How many people do you think are on these benzodiazepines? I don't know, in the US or worldwide. I don't know if you know any of those statistics.
I wish I had that number, but it's really high and it's going up. And I'll tell you why it's going up. I actually just saw Joe Tata, our great nutritionist slash physical therapist friend, who's an expert on pain, with the whole opioid crisis and wanting to have people use less and less opioids and the problems that we're seeing with opioids. A lot of doctors are now starting to prescribe benzodiazepines for pain. So we may be in an even worse situation where we're switching from opioids to benzodiazepines because there isn't this awareness. So it is so common. I think I would probably say, I'm just trying to think if there's any client that I've ever worked with that has not been on a benzodiazepine at some point in their anxiety journey. And I only work with people with anxiety, and it's primarily women. And I would have to say that every single one of them has been on a benzodiazepine, either while they're working with me or at some point. So it is just you've got anxiety, here's a benzodiazepine prescription.
Right. And I think something you said earlier about, well, my case is really severe, like nutrition won't work or this won't work, I need the medications. One, we want to reemphasize if you're coming off to do it with help, but also that, like, I have anxiety too that I deal with, and I know that feeling. It's very overwhelming. Sometimes it's just feels like you're crippled. You can't do anything but think of the anxiety. But I like that your message is like these kind of bringing it back to the earth, bringing it back to like the basics, because our lives have gotten so complicated with toxins and Wi-Fi and all the drugs we can get. And, it's so stimulating. So you're just coming back to like, let's not add caffeine. Let's eat real food. Let's turn off the cell phone. And sometimes, frankly, that's not what we want to hear, right? We don't want to hear that stuff. But if you really want to stop and say, I was telling Marisa yesterday, like, I'm after the summit started, I'm like, I'm getting back off caffeine because like I let it go too far. And, it's not the best for me either as an anxious person. So sometimes we have to make those choices, but the reward is fantastic. You yourself suffered from anxiety and you did all this work and all this research. You've got a great book that's there behind you. So to me, we don't want you to DIY coming off medications, but like a lot of these solutions are pretty simple. It's just, making the choice to, buck the trend in our society, which is full of stimulants and stimulation and all that. Yeah. So that's really great. So we've talked a bit about food and nutrients. You've got your book behind you, and someone mentioned on the Summit site that they've read it a few years ago. They use some of the neurotransmitters. So you briefly mentioned GABA. Could you just, maybe we'll close up with talking a little bit about these supplements and the world of neurotransmitter health?
Okay, before I do that, I just want to address something that you just said, if I may.
Sure.
You said I get a bit of anxiety, and we need to have a chat because I'd love to help you so you don't get anxiety.
Thank you.
Because a lot of people will say, I'm an anxious person, I get a bit of anxiety and I kind of deal with it. I just want to say to you and to anyone else who's in the same situation is that you should never have anxiety, and you should be able to completely eliminate it. A lot of practitioners will say we can help you manage your anxiety. Certainly in the therapy world, I'm going to give you tools to help manage your anxiety. No, I don't want to manage anyone's anxiety. I want to get the anxiety out the door. We're not managing. Wow. We're getting it gone.
I think I'm going to put that on the Facebook already. So excuse me for saying it like that. I don't know. I think that's the first person who's told me you can get rid of anxiety for good.
You can be gone. Okay. Yeah, so it can be gone. So firstly, I just want you and everyone to know that it can be completely gone, and work towards that goal and know that. Okay. So it's a matter of finding the root cause or the root causes and addressing it. The second thing is doing it before things get too bad. With my anxiety, I didn't know about nutrition. I was working in corporate America, and I just got worse and worse and worse, and I was stressed, and I had all of these things going on. And then it got to the point where it, escalated to panic attacks, and I thought I was dying. And so we've got to just listen to the message when we start to feel anxious, and deal with it. But then the other thing you said is, I'm an anxious person. A lot of people say to me when they come and work with me, I've been anxious my whole life. My mother's anxious. I'm anxious. I just figured it's, that's the kind of people we are. We're just prone to anxiety. No, I disagree with that one too. If it runs in your family, it means that maybe your family and you have got the same predisposing factors that is triggering the anxiety. Maybe you just tend to be low in iron, or you tend to not absorb zinc well, or whatever it is. You've got some environmental factor, some toxin in your home that's lowering some of your nutrient levels. So I just wanted to put those two out there, and we'll be chatting.
You're right, because I think sometimes we just pick up on these cues that we hear. Oh, well, I'm an anxious person, or I tend to be anxious, and you just are like, I guess that's how it is, until you talk to someone like you or read your book that okay, maybe that's a myth that I just bought into, right?
Well, it is. And one of my clients, she said to me, she actually came to me because she needed some help she'd just been diagnosed with diabetes. So she wanted some help with help, sorting her diet out, because now she had to change her diet from junk food. She was eating a typical standard American diet, and she wanted to switch over to real whole foods. And we were in a business training together, and I said, yeah, I would help her. And then she did the questionnaires, and she had lack of, she was a worrier, and she had ruminating thoughts, and she had this negative self-talk, and she was a very high-powered businesswoman, very high-powered executive. And I said to her, do you realize my expertise is helping people with anxiety, and I can actually help with all of this? She says, no, I've been like this my whole life. Just like my eyes are blue, I just figure this is my personality and I can't change it. There's nothing I can do. This is the way I am. I've learned how to figure out my issues, and I just do these little things to make sure that I can cope when I'm in a situation, like when I have to go and speak on stage, or when I'm, dealing with big groups of corporate executives. I just, have these little exercises that I do to help me cope. And then afterwards, I do things to kind of wind down afterwards when I'm feeling totally anxious and wired. I said, no, there's something that you can do. And we started to work together, and it all went away, and she just couldn't believe that this could change. She thought it was her personality, and this is how she was and how she'd been her whole life. So I just wanted to share that story as an example that there is a solution. We should not be feeling anxious. So you'd asked a question about the GABA and the tryptophan, and I'd love to just share, but I just wanted to see if you had any comments about that.
No, share away.
Okay. So with her, and with all of my clients, we assess what type of anxiety do you have, because anxiety can have many different root causes. I've talked about caffeine. That can certainly trigger anxiety. Sugar can, low zinc can, gluten sensitivity can trigger anxiety. But there's two types of anxiety that respond really well to two specific amino acids, and that's low serotonin anxiety, and that responds to tryptophan or 5-HTP. And then there's the low GABA anxiety, and that responds to an amino acid called GABA. So when you've got low serotonin anxiety, you have worry, ruminating thoughts, insomnia, afternoon and evening cravings, negative self-talk, and it's all in your head. You just imagine the worst, you procrastinate, you just have lack of confidence, you have this sort of feeling of, who am I to be doing this? You've heard of imposter syndrome, where women are very, very successful and they think, oh my gosh, I'm not good enough to do this. People are going to figure out who I am. I'm a fraud. That's low serotonin. And if you've got that kind of anxiety, we do a trial of tryptophan. We rate your symptoms before and after, and we get resolution. And then with the low GABA kind of anxiety, it's this physical tension. So you'll feel it in your neck will be stiff and tense. You may feel it in your gut, and you may self-medicate with alcohol to relax. So this woman at the beginning, she was using alcohol, and alcohol is like a drug. It's a drug that helps us to relax. And if you find that you're self-medicating with alcohol in order to wind down and relax, that could be a sign that it's low GABA. The other thing with low GABA, we can sometimes see insomnia, we can see increased pain. And it's more this physical tension more than the mental tension. And again, we use the amino acid GABA to help raise our GABA levels. Now, at the same time, even though these amino acids will give us instant relief, really instant within 5 minutes. If you have low GABA or low serotonin, you do a trial of either tryptophan or GABA, you should see an improvement in 5 minutes of using a sublingual form of one of these amino acids. Then you know you're onto something. You know, I'll have people comment on my blog and say, I've been using GABA for a month and I'm not noticing anything. Should I continue? No, it means that you don't need it, or that you're not using enough, or that you're not using the right form, or there's something else going on. It's not GABA that's your issue. So it's a quick thing. And the great thing is you get results right away. And then you can deal with all these other things, changing the diet, dealing with the gut, getting rid of the chemicals in your home, getting rid of the makeup that's toxic. We didn't even talk about makeup in this call, but if you're using creams or makeup that has these chemicals in it, those are endocrine disruptors, and those are going to throw off your hormones, and then in turn they're going to throw off your neurotransmitters as well.
Okay, great. Yeah, there's a lot in there, and we did cover some of that in the summit, if people are hopefully tuned in to that. Trudy, I have to wrap up kind of soon because I'm
ready.
Okay, because I have to go volunteer, as I told you. So yeah, this was great. I've been posting here on the Facebook some of your resources. I posted your book, your website, your Facebook group. But yeah, tell us more. Like, if people want to get started, what's a great place to start?
Well, the book is great if you're a reader. If a lot of people will read the book, the Anti-Anxiety Food Solution, and just step by step go through what's in the book. I've got an online group program, Amazing Aminos for Anxiety, if you're feeling like you need that group support. And then my blog, everywoman over29.com, I have a very engaged community who ask questions and post questions on the blog. Sign up for my newsletter and you'll get the blog article in your inbox every week. And then Facebook, Trudy Scott Anti-Anxiety Food Solution. I've got a very engaged community over there. So there's lots of ways to learn and to find solutions, because I always say that you deserve to feel your absolute best all the time. And if you're not feeling your absolute best, then we need to figure out how we can get you to feeling your absolute best.
Well, thank you so much, Trudy. And if you're in my community, we'll be sharing some of Trudy's upcoming anxiety summits. When is your next event?
The next Anxiety Summit, Season 5, is in November, and the theme is gut-brain axis. So we are going to be talking all about the gut-brain connection and how sorting out your gut can affect your brain, and there's many ways to do that. So
that's going to be a popular one.
Yeah.
It's going to be really popular.
Yes. And then in 2020, we have Season 6, and it's going to be toxins, medications, and infections. So a lot of what we talked about today will be covered, and you're going to be speaking on that one, talking about toxins. And one of the toxins that we didn't even mention today is mold. So mold toxicity can play a role in causing anxiety. So we've got to think about all of these aspects.
Great. Well, thank you again, Trudy. We really appreciate your time and all the research you've done. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Bridget.